Let's come back to our hypothetical patient here. 20 grams of total carbs per day. Let's hone in on the other two macros. Early on, what that looks like, because obviously if we're bringing the carbs down, we're going to need to up the other two, or at least one of them. And then over time, does that change as somebody's getting more metabolically healthy and beyond?
Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. That first season, I mean, why I don't say how many grams of fat should you have or how many grams of protein should you have. I'm like, you'll see me avoid that answer like the plague. I'll tell you how many carbohydrates to eat, but the other percentages really depend on how well your body is responding to this. How insulin resistant is that 40-year-old? I don't know. I'll be able to tell you in a week by looking at what is his morning fasting glucose and what are those morning fasting blood ketone levels. We know that there's some rules that are easy to follow at the beginning. When an insulin resistant patient comes in and they have not done this, or maybe they've been on it before but haven't in recent weeks, we say, all right, drop those carbs to 20 total per day. And we want you eating mostly fat, like 80% of this, calories, weight, whatever way you're measuring your food needs to be fat. So it's why it's just counterculture. People that are fearful of fat are like, oh my word, you're nuts. There's a tinfoil hat on this lady. Like, no. In order for you to get this benefit, I need you to change the chemistry or the hormone that you can't see, which is insulin. And so we tell them we want high fat for breakfast. We want more egg yolks than whites, and we want you dipping the bacon in the egg yolk. No toast, but that amount of fat in the morning is really important. And if you do calculate it out, it's at least 80% is fat. You're like, oh my goodness, that sounds so unhealthy. And indeed, that's not where you stay forever. But in order to keep those ketones in circulation, we're going to get you to 2 or 3 weeks until I can predict that your hormones that are built from fat are helping you again. And I think that's one of the most beautiful moments in helping these patients with this is when they come in, that man who's 40 years old and doesn't, he's had insulin resistance. He doesn't have access to the amount of testosterone his body's making. He doesn't have access to the vitamin D that he has in his body. It's tucked in fat cells. Insulin dictated over any fatty molecule. And that means he sacrifices the testosterone and the vitamin D and many other things. But those two are easy examples to saying, well, I can help you more if you have those essential hormones working for you instead of, storing them in your armpit. Let's get them back in your circulation. Okay, doc, how do I do that? You got to lower the insulin. That means you got to have fat in circulation. So as we put them and say, all right, I want you to keep eating fat until you accidentally miss a meal. You're like, what? I never miss a meal. I'm like, I know, that's what's been happening. But one measurement for me to know, are you fat adapted, which means we now can see fat get from one end organ to the next. We can produce this hormone and it delivers to the cell. It activates that nucleus. Proteins are made by that cell because it's working correctly. Whereas before, like 90% of it wasn't getting where it was supposed to go. When they have lowered that insulin and they have circulated fat, they feel better. Their brain is better. They sleep better. Their immune system is working better. And this can happen all in the course of 14 days. And then they'll do this weird thing where they miss a meal. They're busy and the sugars aren't going up and down anymore. They're stable. Now they may be too high, but they're stable. And it's that volatility, that up and down of your blood sugar that was keeping them eating every 2 hours. And they'll be like, I thought that was for weirdos. Whoever misses a meal, not me. And of course you can't miss a meal without those fat-based hormones on your side. And it's a great moment. You can help patients when they feel good. 25 years of seeing patients, the first 15, I wrote more prescriptions for high fiber and exercise and Metamucil. I mean, all the things that no longer, and the patients felt terrible. They'd come in saying, my depression's not any better. I just can't get my brain to stay sleeping. I feel like I'm just old. And they're not old, but their bodies were acting that way. And within 14 days of just shutting down those carbs, really pushing them into a ketogenic state, And again, not losing them in the first 3 days, meaning if they have to fight insulin all on their own and they're severely insulin resistant, getting those ketones in circulation this isn't forever. It's to get you to the part where your body is doing it on its own. And I've just found great success with, all right, you're going to feel better on your own without any supplements in about 14 days.
All right, let me know if I have this right. So in that first couple of weeks, insulin's coming down. In the beginning, we're going to take fat from the diet, make ketones out of that. As the insulin comes down, we're going to be able to release our body fat and make ketones out of that, say a couple weeks into this and beyond. Hence, in the beginning, it would be more important to have more fat to provide that substrate to make ketones.
Right. Chemistry, those hormones have to fix first. That insulin is too powerful. You won't win. I mean, look at the last 4 years of the use of Ozempic or the tirzepatide or the semaglutide. Those two hormones are manipulating how your brain and your gut respond in relation to food. And you don't get such sweeping success because hormones suck. They are amazing at how they help people say, something's different. I don't want to eat so much. And I'm saying lead with that. I mean, quit making the one that's keeping your hunger going. It's feeding that insulation process, that storage process. And in the same breath, those hormones that everybody else is paying $500 a month to inject, your brain and body will respond to them and make them again when you stop circulating so much insulin. And but you have to lead with manipulating those hormones. Or the white knuckling it, they fail, Jesse. They just fail. They will do a great job. It's like asking somebody to stop drinking booze and not recognize that there's probably more reasons for drinking booze than just making you relax at the end of the day. There's something to this that I need you to work on if you want to stay sober. If you're going to try to stay out of the lane of, carb rescuing, using that carbohydrate in ways that is from way more than nutrition, way too often, hormones are first. You have to reduce the insulin. That's
in that first couple of weeks, as we're lowering the insulin and transitioning to this diet, is any of the fat being released from the body at that point? And are we going to experience some fat loss? So yeah, explain that, because the way I explained it there, where we're taking in the fat and making ketones, it almost made it seem like we're not going to burn any fat or make any ketones from our fat during that period. So talk about the nuance there.
Right. Again, the hormone is what released it. So by putting that fat in, what you were doing was you were lowering the carbohydrates. Now, if you lower the carbohydrates without eating any fat, this same thing would happen, but about 3 weeks into the process. And that is a long time to go hungry. So what you do by putting fat at the beginning of the story is the patient feels better. They stick with it. They feel better. But when you have ketones in circulation, those ketones are made in your liver, and they send out a message that I need more. I need you to get me some fat, supply me with the little substrate that I make ketones from. And that's a string of fat. So the way that fat cell opened up was, number one, you had to lower insulin. And number two, you had to have a ketone present. So by the presence of ketones, now you're on that day 3, 4, and 5, and you'll start to watch the number of fat cells say, oh, I know this game. We have a whole bunch of stuff stored for you and ready that they could not release until those two things happened. The insulin went down and the ketones were in circulation. And then it's a snowball. It's a snowball to say, okay, we're going to keep that in supply. We're going to increase that energy production. And that's that's where the replenishment of those fat-based hormones starts to be, measurable within that 14 days and almost miraculous by 6 weeks. Like, wow, look at their vitamin D. Without increasing the vitamin D that they're taking. Again, vitamin D is essential. Your body cannot make it. You must consume it, either the sun or your foods. And you look at a ketogenic diet, and they're not taking any supplements. They are just a ketogenic diet. And that vitamin D level will rise because it is being mobilized out of the storage in their fat. And it was there all along, hidden behind too much insulin for that patient. And boy, they feel great at 6 weeks.
How long will that vitamin D continue to be released?
Depends on how long. You want to keep the fat cells open, right? So it followed the rules of any other molecule. It went into fat storage at the same rate that the fat did. And as long as you weren't severely depreciated of it during that season of your life. So I had a patient measure this. Comes in, this is the second or third time they're doing the ketogenic diet. And they're like, okay, this time I'm going to follow your rules. And I'm like, I give them a kit where they can prick their finger and check their ketones, check their vitamin D. And so they check it every week for those 6 weeks. And the first 2 weeks, not much change. That third week, exponentially higher after that. We stopped at 6 weeks and it was, they started out with a vitamin D in their like teens or low 20s as those first few results. It was like 85 by the time that ended the 6 weeks. And I've seen folks come back with, 150. They're not taking any vitamin D supplement. They're just doing their life, maybe eating some little bitty fish. But that level of vitamin D is, you're not eating that much. It's coming from your storage. That's where they had a lot of fat mass to sacrifice to this experiment. So that's part of it.
And then the long tail of this, if somebody is losing weight, say for a year and a half, committed to what we're talking about, it sounds like they'll continue to release vitamin D and likely won't need to supplement through that whole period of time.
Yeah, I've seen that happen several times. And again, it's one of those great little test kits that's at home. Test it. I wouldn't want to guess on my own vitamin D, but and I learned this because patients did this with me. Like, wow, I wasn't expecting it to be that robust for this long. But they have to stay in a ketogenic state. I think that's the hard part. This is the holiday when they come in, they lower the carbs. They're making bushels of ketones those first couple of weeks. Their body's almost overcompensating, not going to live without a resource. But then you get to that steady state where you're like, okay, this is where it gets harder. You're now at 20 total carbs. Why aren't you making any more ketones? Well, your body has found a steady state. It doesn't like to make energy or mobilize energy that you're not going to use. The human body does not waste energy on purpose. It wastes it to survive. So that first wave of ketones, it did like, oh, you changed the hormone, you win. This is absolutely right. But that weight loss will stall unless you decrease the insulin yet again. And that's where the 6 week to 6 year story is several plateaus that we got to dial in and say, all right, you got to outsmart your body. Let me show you how to do that.
Okay, so we have vitamin D. Was it other hormones that are trapped in the fat that get released as well?
Yeah, think of all the ones that are made from the base of cholesterol. So those are your sex hormones. That's progestin, estradiol, testosterone, and then the vitamin D are the core ones. You've got cortisol that's in there as well. You don't need to make any more of that usually, but so you're seeing more of those essential and sex-based hormones rise on that first season of a ketogenic diet.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
Your physician is never going to care this much. They're not going to study you this much. You have to study you this much. That morning fasting blood sugar, when it only gets to 95 in the morning, you got problems. That's not normal.